Hello everybody and welcome to this discussion. The topic for today's lesson is facility location. First, facility means the warehouse, the factories, office, buildings, and so on. So determining those facilities location, determining the best location for this facility is a good investment, or it is essential task of operation manager. Facility location is a process of determining the best geographic sites for the firm's operation. We need to determine the best geographic sites for the firm's operation because if we take transport cost can take 25% of the revenue. 25% of the revenue can be taken by the transport cost. Or it can reduce our expense up to 50%. It can reduce our expense up to 15%. By choosing best geographic sites, we can reduce our expense with 50%. Reducing operating costs and capital invest. We can also reduce operating cost and capital investment. We can enhance our effectiveness in plant layout. We can make effective plant layout by choosing best geographic sites. Coordinating with government policies is also possible. There are different policies for the government for different sites. So we can align with the government policy. For example, the government may give an incentive for industrial zone regions. So in order to get those incentives, it's better to locate our facilities to the industrial zones. And employee security, welfare, and public needs can be achieved through selecting the best geographic sites. Time-based competitiveness due to closeness, trade agreement, and shipping cost can be reduced. We can compete with our competitors due to our closeness, due to our proximity. We can compete with closeness. We can even we can make a trade agreement with our surrounding customers, and the shipping cost can be reduced. We can also fulfill our resource demand. When we select locations, we need to consider our market and our supplies. So by choosing best geographic sites, need for selecting a suitable site or location can be conducted while we start a new factory. If we start a new factory, so we can determine which of the locations is best for our facilities. And sometimes we can conduct location decision during expansion when we expand the existing factories or the existing facilities. So we need to determine the location for the branches, for the location for the new plants. And during relocations, due to change in demand and supply, due to change in several factors, for example, the demand or the supply, for example, shift in the demographic of the society, can force us to relocate to the other location. That means we need to follow the market. If the location of the market changes, so we need to follow the market and we need to follow also the supply. So during that time, we need to relocate our plants to the new locations. And sometimes expiry of the lease and non-renewal of the lease forces us to change the locations. In general, the main point is that an operation should only change its location if the benefits of moving outweigh the cost of operating in the new location plus the cost of moving. If the benefits of moving exceeds the cost of operating in a location and the cost of moving, so that is good decision. Good decision. And here is the features of location decisions. Location decisions have the following features. The first one is long-term decision and made infrequently. It is long-term decision because once committed to the location, many resources and costs issues are difficult to change. So the decision is long-term and it is made infrequently, not very often, because we invest a lot of costs and a lot of resources, and to change that location is difficult. And the other is decision greatly affect both fixed cost and variable cost. For example, the rent of building is a fixed cost. The cost of the land is fixed cost. So these costs can be reduced from place to place. The variable cost, if we take transport cost, it also varies with different locations. So location decision, that means greatly affects both fixed cost and variable cost. That is total cost. It affects total cost. The objective is to maximize the benefits of location to the firm. In any way, choosing the best location is to maximize the benefit of the location to the firm. The benefit of the location, that we get the benefit of the location to the firm. Location has a major impact on the overall risk and profit of the company. It affects overall risk and even the profit of the company by affecting the total cost. Let us see the relationship between location and costs specifically. One simplest, location-related costs are fixed in place and difficult to reduce. Once we establish our facility in certain location, so location-related costs such as transport cost may be fixed cost. They will be our fixed cost, and we cannot reduce those fixed costs. And the other is determining optimal facility location is a good investment. It is a good investment, so we need to take care while we choose the locations. Location decision based on low cost require careful consideration. By the way, considering cost during location selection is one parameter or only one criteria. It's not a full criteria. Always, cost is not always the most important aspect of a strategic decision. Sometimes there are other factors which comes ahead of cost. So we need to take care of deciding the low costs. For example, location may be related with innovation, which is another factor, which is additional factor with cost. So 4 key attributes when the strategy is based on innovation. We need to take into consideration these attributes when we want innovative regions, when we want innovation into our consideration of location decision. The first one is high quality and specialized inputs. The inputs should be specialized inputs and high quality inputs in terms of maybe personnel. An environment that encourages investment in local rivalry. The environment should encourage the investment, and it also has local rivalry. That means there should be local competition, which encourages innovation. A sophisticated local market. The local market should be sophisticated so that our firm will innovate, will compete, will innovate. And the other is local presence of related and supporting industries. which supports our factories or our firms to be innovative. Now let's see steps in location decision. The first step in location decision is to decide whether we establish our company out of the country or within the country. Within the country or foreign country. So we need to determine. We need to determine either of the two. After that, once we decide the country, the next step is to decide the regions within the country. After deciding the regions within the country, so the next is deciding the community or the space, almost sub-regions. And after decide that sub-region, so we need to decide the last step, that is site decision, the site of the facility. So we start from the wider location, then narrowing down till to the exact site decision. When we decide those locations, we need to take critical success factors. We compare those locations based on the critical success factors. The critical success factors, for example, at country level are, the first one is political risk. If there is political risk, political uncertainty, so we need to take care. We need to give less weights or less point. Government rules, attitudes, and incentives provided by the government can also be another critical success factor in order to compare two or three countries. And the next is cultural and economic issue. The culture of the country as a whole towards work or towards our products and services, and the economic issue. For example, better economic issue is better to be chosen. We need to choose better economic development than less developed country. Location of the market. Location of the market is also another point. Locations of our customers, that means, for example, in some countries have high population and the other has low population, and some regions are scattered population and some others are crowded, so we need to take care of that. And the other critical success factor is labor talent, attitude, productivity, cost. We will see in detail in the next slides. The productivity should be considered, and the costs, the labor cost, the electric cost, and different service costs, utility costs should be considered. Availability of supplies, communication, energy. This is also another critical success factors. Our supplies should be there, which is proximity to our facilities. And the other is exchange rates and currencies risks are also another critical success factors. And after making the country decision based on the previous critical success factor, now we evaluate the regions. Within the country based on these critical success factors. The first one is corporate desire. That means the senior manager need or the senior manager's interest is one of the critical success factors. The attractiveness of the region with different parameters we can take based on the market or based on supplies or based on different utilities we can consider. And the next one is labor availability, cost, attitude towards Sudan, the availability of labor within that region, within that specific region, the costs of the labor attitude or attitude towards labor's union, that means, should be considered as a critical success factor. And the next one is costs and availability of utilities like electricity, water, and telecom, land, construction costs. And the fifth one is environmental regulations. Within a country, different regions within a country may have different environmental regulations. So, based on our byproduct, based on our waste management, so we need to take care of, we need to consider the regulations. Government incentives and physical policies. The government incentives and physical policies may be different for different regions. For example, the government may give incentives for those who invest in industry zones. Proximity to raw materials and customers. A facility should be near to both raw materials and customers as much as possible. As much as possible, the facility should, or the factory or the organization should locate itself in between the raw materials and the customers, near to the raw materials and the customers. And the next is the site decision. When we decide the site, so we have to look the following critical success factors. The first one is site size and cost, the size of the land that we establish our company, and the cost of land, the airway, railway, highway, and waterway systems. The availability of those systems should be checked within that site. Zoning restrictions, if there is a special restriction for that specific sites, we need to take that as a critical success factor. And proximity of the service or supplies needed. This is also another issue. We need to be near to our supplies and services. Environmental impact issue is also considered as a critical success factors. Now let's see some more detail about those critical success factors. For example, when we said labor productivity, we need to compare the cost paid for the labor, or the expense paid for the labor, and the productivity or the output of the labor. Wage rates are not the only cost. By the way, wage rates, that is the salary or the wages, are not the only cost. In addition, lower production may increase the total cost. Lower production by itself is another indirect cost. So we need to take care of the labor productivity. The more the productive, the more we select. Labor cost per day divided by production or output of that employee, so cost per unit. So this cost per unit should be lower. The cost per unit should be lower. So when we compare these two countries, the cost per unit of country A is 1.17 and country B is 1.25. So we have to select, based on labor productivity, we have to select country A because it has lower cost per unit of production, lower cost per unit of production than that of country B. And the other is exchange rates and currency risks. This can also have significant impact on our cost structures. If the currency is unstable, if it is less stable, so there may be a risk. There may be a risk on our cost structure. Rates change over time. So if the rate of changes is frequently increasing or decreasing, or in short, if it is unstable rate of change, so we give lower points. And the other is costs. costs can be sometimes tangible and sometimes intangible. We need to consider all those tangible and intangible costs. For example, for tangible costs, easily measured costs such as utilities, expense for the utility, for waters, for electricity or telecom, labor cost, material cost, and taxes can be considered as tangible cost. Whereas intangible costs are less easy to quantify. We cannot see easily, we cannot detect easily, and include education, public transportation, community, quality of life, maybe productivity, and so on can be considered as intangible costs. The other is political risks and value and cultures. The political uncertainty or the stability of the country is one of the critical success factors. The nation, state, local government's attitude towards private and intellectual property, zoning, pollution, rules and regulation can be the factors which affect location decision. And the other is worker attitude towards turnover, unions, absenteeism, and other factors. Globally, cultures have different attitudes towards punctuality, legal and ethical issues. So we need to consider all those factors while we select the locations. The other important point is proximity to the market. That means proximity to our customers. Closeness to our customers is very important. Particularly, it is very crucial to service industry. Because, why this is so? Because in service industry, we produce at the same time the customer consume our product or services. So there is no it is not possible to transport services, and it is not also possible to store services. That's why proximity to the market is very crucial, particularly for services. Just-in-time system or high transportation cost may make it important to manufacturers. Even for the manufacturer, it is also good to be close to the market to reduce the transportation cost, and to satisfy by delivering timely, to satisfy the customers by delivering timely. And good responsiveness for the needs of customers and fast delivery. Proximity to the suppliers is also important criteria, because sometimes perishable goods, high transportation cost, and bulky products may be our supplies. So in order to use those supplies effectively, we need to be close to the suppliers as well. And the other point is proximity to the competitors. By the way, this seems to be a paradox. Proximity to the competitor is an essential or very important, because by being proximate to our competitors, we can get resources, common resources such as natural resources, information about the competitors so as to win them, capital and talent, because resources or even the market will be concentrated to the place where several companies providing the same product is located. So we can get those resources by being close to the competitors. Even we can follow our competitors in order to make good decisions. The location often depends on the type of business. Actually, the location decision often depends on the type of business. For example, heavy manufacturing facilities large, require space, extensive investment. So during this case, so we need to locate to the supplies, because the supplies may be large in quantity, so it requires it requires high amount of transport costs. So we need to be in a rural area than urban area in order to get sufficient spaces for our facilities. Light industry facilities, smaller, cleaner plants, and less costly. So during this time, we may be located, maybe our location, maybe in this case, can be flexible than the first one, that is heavy manufacturing facilities, and the other is retail and service facilities. These are the smallest and the least costly. During this case, we have to locate those retail and service facilities around the market, close to the market, as we said before, because services are perishable, or services are produced and at the same time should be consumed and cannot transport with transportation system and cannot store. So we need to be close to the market. Now let us see service location strategy. So far we have discussed about manufacturing location strategy. Actually it works for the service. In some cases it works for the service location strategy. Not that much difficult to establish service compared to manufacturing, that is highly capital intensive, that is manufacturing. Less capital is needed to establish the service compared to manufacturing. We have to consider the following critical success factor when we determine the location for our service. The first one is purchasing power of the customer area. That means purchasing power, the income of the customers. The income of the customers should be considered. And the second is service and image compatibility with demographic of the customer area. This is also another issue. And the third one is competition in the area. We need to take care, we need to consider the competition of that specific area. We have to consider also quality of the competition. Whether it is genuine competition or whether it's not genuine competition. And the fifth one is uniqueness of the firms and competitors' location. We need to take care about uniqueness of our firms and competitors' location. The sixth one is physical qualities of facilities and neighboring business. Physical qualities of the facilities. The facility may be the utilities, the transport facility, the electric or the water, the telecom, and so on, and the neighboring business. The neighboring business is also considered. And the last one is operating policy of the firm. The operating policy of the firm, the compatibility of the policies to that location should be considered. Let us see service and the manufacturing location decisions. In the case of service providing companies, we have to focus on revenue maximization. The location is major determinants of our revenue. Whereas in the case of manufacturing facilities or in the case of manufacturing company, so cost is the main determinant. The main determinant for the location. In the case of service, revenue. In the case of manufacturing, cost. In the case of service, high customer contact issues are critical in order to maximize the revenue. Costs are relatively constant for a given area. The costs are relatively constant, that is fixed cost, or we cannot increase or decrease that fixed cost. We play with revenue. So therefore, revenue function is critical in the case of service providing. Whereas in the case of manufacturing, location is the major determinant of costs, and most major costs can be identified explicitly for each site, like transportation cost and so on. Low customer contact allows focus on the intangible costs, because in the case of manufacturing, no need of labor contact, no need of customer contact, because we can transport the products to the place where the customers are located. So we focus on the costs, identifiable costs, and intangible costs can also be added. In the case of revenue, we focus on volume, that means number of customers, volume of the market, drawing area, purchasing power of the individuals, competition, advertising, pricing. We focus also on competition because retail stores often attract more shoppers when competitors are closed. So the customers get sufficient alternatives, sufficient options. So the customers are interested to go to the market, to go to the place where the competitors are close to each other, so that they can choose one service provider with the other service provider. They can compare one service with the other service. And the physical quality, the parking, access, security, lighting, and appearance, image also considered for the maximizing the revenue. In the case of manufacturing, tangible costs like transportation costs, shipment costs, energy, utility, labor costs, raw material tax, and so on. Those explicit costs can be considered. And the others, intangible and future costs, attitude toward union, whether it's positive attitude or negative attitude, or quality of life of the surrounding, education expenditure by the state is another issue. Quality of the state and local government is also another intangible factors which affect the cost. And the last section, this one is the last section, and these are the techniques in order to compare two locations to establish our facilities. We have to compare with these techniques. For the service, these are the techniques, models to determine importance of various factors. We can use factor rating method. Actually, factor rating method is used for manufacturing site selection. Traffic counters, that means the volume of the market, because revenue is our concern in order to select the location for the service facilities. Demographic analysis of drawing area, purchasing power analysis of the area. In order to increase the revenue, we have to take care about the purchasing power analysis of the area. So purchasing power analysis of the area is one of the technique. Demographic analysis of the drawing area is one of the technique. Traffic counts, the volume of the market, is one of the techniques. Center of gravity method is another technique, and geographic information system also another technique, which helps us to select the sites for the service firms. On the other hand, for selecting the location for the manufacturing, we can use transportation method, factor rating method, locational break-even analysis, and so on. Anyway, we will see in details with the next discussion. This is all about today's discussion. If you have any question or comment, you are welcome. Have a good time. Bye.